I want to share what we ended off with last week, and that was, we called it false expectations. We're talking about relationships, for those of you who are new with us here. And this is a discussion, so I'm not speaking for the next hours. We're learning together. When two people go into a relationship expecting things that are not realistic or not fair from the other one, we end up hurting ourselves more than anything else. And listening to my friends always talk about their wife does this, their wife does that. Also, my wife, she only does, she must not be a good wife. Whatever it is, we sometimes set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up for the same wife that you heard does, and the same husband that he has other problems that you don't know about. And what you have at home is 1,000 times better than what the other person is struggling with. And these false expectations, this not wanting someone for who they are. The first thing when you go into a relationship is, I want you. I don't want you to be somebody else. I don't want you to look different. I want you to be you. And when you go into a relationship, you don't want that person to be who they are, don't marry them. Do them a favor and just let them go. If you're not willing to accept the person who they are as they're, with their good sides and their shortcomings. Every person has shortcomings. There's nobody in the world that is lacking, that's not lacking something. Sometimes you know about those things before you marry them. Sometimes you find out afterwards. But the ideal situation is to know not everybody's perfect, but that imperfection is also something that I like. That's what I'm here for. We're two people that are working together to try to make something better. When one person goes in, I showed you a story last week about the Lubavitcher Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, who told the girl, you read too many romance novels. Not everything in life looks like a romance novel. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a different twist, and you have to know. There was a famous rabbi who said that if your relationship is going smooth, said relationships are like riding a bicycle. If it's going easy, that must mean you're going downhill. Sometimes you have to figure it out, to see, it goes up, it goes down, but that's the way a relationship works. I believe that unconditional love is the basis of many good and healthy relationships. But let's backtrack. Let's not talk about couples for a minute. Children and their parents. There's a lot of tension in the world between children and their parents. A child will end up inevitably not becoming who their parent wanted them to be. But maybe I'm happy with who my child is. Right, because you didn't have such a rigid definition for what you wanted them to be. You were okay as long as they fell into this parameter, this box of. But the moment they deviate from the path that we want them to look like, we have a very hard time loving them. And that lack of unconditional love causes all kinds of problems. When a person doesn't feel love, they don't feel that they don't have a home to go back to. There's no reason that a person should be an orphan while their parents are still alive. There's not a reason for it.
Slicha, but maybe it will sound funny, but there is unconditional love. It's between your pet and as a person. A dog give you unconditional love. It's amazing. He doesn't expect anything. The moment he sees you, he really loves you. And I'm not joking.
So why does the dog have unconditional love?
Because you don't expect anything from him and he doesn't expect anything from you.
But with another human being you do expect.
Another human being also, not just you expect, but they have a sechel that they use in between their ears that sometimes causes them to do things that are not going to make you happy.
Exactly. But my mom taught me one thing that I really try to follow. It's very hard. Don't expect anything from your kids. Just give them what you can give without expecting return, and it will be fine. And it does work sometimes. Sometimes. We are human beings. We are human beings, but sometimes.
You remind me of. It says there are two ways to win a fight with a Jewish mother. To date, neither of them have been proven correct. This is sometimes it works.
You need to be very strong not to expect
maybe
something in return.
That they did not follow everything you wanted means that you're gonna stop loving them.
Very hard to stop loving a child.
Yeah.
No matter what they do.
Stop loving
no
them,
matter what, and they can really hurt you, and they right down to the bitter end.
But I want to differentiate.
But you
doesn't mean I have to agree with what my child does.
No.
I have also a right not to agree with what you're doing.
It's a very old expression. My mother used to use it. If you don't expect anything from anybody, you won't get hurt.
That's right.
But can I challenge this? Because now you and Dahlia are saying the same thing. Is that a realistic way to live your life? Not to expect anything?
In a relationship with kids, it's very healthy.
Imagine someone tells me, I'm getting married and I expect nothing. What do you mean? So why are you marrying them?
No. A relation
with your children,
parents and kids, or kids and parents.
I disagree.
Tamara disagrees. Let's hear it.
Once they're an adult, when they're a kid, they absolutely everything. But once an adult, I think there is something like
But you will disappointed every time, again and again.
right,
The
like for
kids
example,
are
all my
Come on,
kids
egoistic.
call me at least once a week. I have one child who doesn't. And I said to that child, I said, listen, it means a lot to me. Just before Shabbos, just call. She didn't get it, and it hurt. And I feel I have the right to say it hurts me. It would be so nice to hear from you once a week.
You know what would be so nice? It would be so nice if my mother let me call home only once a week. I would be like, wow, that's incredible. Okay.
you know your mother. What do you know your mother?
If I didn't call home one day from yeshiva, must be he's dead, must be something happened, maybe he's in the hospital, maybe...
But they all know you.
But no, you're right. I mean, this is an expectation.
I said to her,
Oh,
I mean, I changed your diet. I did so much. But
what am I asking for in return?
It's okay because I'm continuing giving. It's not like I say, oh, you
But
know,
that's
don't
what I'm
call it,
saying.
forget it.
If you
no.
won't expect, you won't be disappointed, and
Exactly,
you won't be
yeah,
hurt.
But she's saying, I'm not asking for so much.
Yeah,
I'm
I
asking
know.
just
I know
for
exactly
a bare
what you're
minimum.
saying. We all mother.
Okay.
We know exactly
Yeah.
what you're saying.
It's okay.
And I think it's okay for the child to know that.
Yeah, of
You
course.
don't
Chaya wants to say
care.
something. If you know Chaya about this, she's new here today.
So, just a little thing. I think it's okay to have expectations, but maybe an understanding when some of those expectations aren't met. So, because I think it's good, it's important to have standards in any relationship, but I like a little bit of leeway, or maybe there's certain, like one thing about a Shabbos call, or one little thing that's really important.
What if you would start calling her before
Oh,
Shabbos?
I do. And I mean, I do call. The thing is that she never has time. You know? She says, I can't talk right now. So then I feel, yes, that's fine. You know, to call me back when you have time. But that doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. I think this is fair. I think
And the
we should-
relationship is very good. When we're together, there's no problem at all. There's something about the
phone and
phone.
There are kids.
I had
that
a
don't
roommate
call.
that called home. I'm not going to exaggerate. Maybe once
I
a
did.
month, or once every 2 months. In between then, his parents didn't even hear from him. And I thought that was so crazy. But when they're together, they were having a great time. When they were apart, they just didn't need to be in touch with each other. I still think it's strange. But I think this might boil down to personality. But what if our child doesn't do? What if they don't follow the career? We want them to be a doctor and they want to be a musician. I don't know.
That's fine.
We're talking-
That's fine
You
with
think
me.
every parent though says that's fine?
No, but I think you have to give everybody a chance to be
But-
their own person and their own character.
And
And
what they
whatever
want.
they choose, you have to
Exactly.
back them.
But that-
Because without your backing, that child can be nothing.
Parents-
I mean, my kids knew what they wanted to do when they were 3 years old, and they're doing it today.
So let me ask you a question. Are you the person that you may have always wanted yourself to be?
Of course not.
No.
Nobody is perfect.
I'm happy. I'm
No,
not
it isn't
perfect,
perfect.
but I'm
It
happy
doesn't
who
mean,
I
Did you-
am.
did you
mean
hit-
that we're not happy.
Did you hit the family goal, the career goal, the financial goal, all those things that you thought in my dreams? That's what
You
I
know
want to
what?
be.
That's not.
I
That's,
never put goals.
Answer. I'm answering yes
for
or
your
no.
parents.
Yes or no.
She's
No.
asking
No.
for your parents. I know
That's
I did.
yourself.
I was very lucky.
No,
But-
but you still love yourself.
yes.
Absolutely.
But
When you marry somebody, you're supposed to love them the same way you love yourself, and
Yes.
they don't hit the
Even
goals.
more.
They don't hit the goals that you thought they were going to hit. Why does the love stop there? Why don't we say, if you're a part of me, what does the Torah say? Etzem me. You're the bone of my body. If that's how I am, then if my wife she didn't reach where she thought she was going to reach, or where I thought she was going to reach, just like I would love myself with my shortcomings, I would also have to love her with her shortcomings. That's part of what we are.
That's exactly
And I
right.
believe that when we have that kind of relationship, and it could be that we're not pushed to have that kind of relationship, but a relationship where you are me and I am you, and just like I accept myself with all of the good things and the negative things that come with, I must accept my spouse with all the good things and
Yes.
the negative things that come with.
It doesn't mean that I don't get cross about them, but yes, I do accept them. Sometimes I get really, but then I know that if I let go, it's not really fair because he doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. So
Parents-
you've got to it's a balance. You have to understand the balance. And that's what a marriage is. There's a balance between two people of understanding and love and friendship and everything else. It's not easy.
I had a man here at my table once who lost his job. And for 3 months, nobody in his family knew he lost his job, not even his wife. And I spoke with him about it. And his answer was, being a failure at work, he can stomach that. But the way his wife treats him when he's a failure at work, he I can't handle it.
Oh wow.
I can't handle it. And I question the basis of such a marriage. I question if you're not safe in your own house, where are you safe?
Exactly.
Where are you safe? And Alpel's trying to say that for each other, two people in a relationship, this must be the safe zone. This must be the place where, sure, someone might have an opinion, but I am safe here. If I'm not safe here, then this is not a relationship I should be in. Yeah.
Back to parents and kids, I think as parents, our duty to give them guidelines till they grow up. At some stage, we have to back up and to let them lifroach, to fulfill their dream or something,
Yes.
and to accept what they are. We always, as a parent, my mom always says to me,
Dad, you're Jewish? Stepping back, letting them breathe.
I do it. אני ממש do it.
You do it, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lama, because I had a very good example from my parents. My mom, even now when I go to Israel, I'm over 60. She still wants me when I leave to tell her that I arrived, to tell her
That's
lots
right.
of things. And she said, you always will be my daughter.
That's
no
right.
matter what age
That's
you
right.
are. As long as I live, I'm your mom.
That's
And I say
right.
the same to my kids. I don't care what you're doing. If you're traveling somewhere, just send me a message. Mom, I say I'm your mom and I'll nag you till I die.
You see,
That's
so
right.
you also have
Yeah,
it.
בסדר. Yes, but when they travel and think like that, yes, but I let them do whatever they want
me
and I
too.
respect it.
You can't stop a child.
There is-
You can guide a child, but you
No.
can't stop a child.
If you stop them,
That's
I
right.
think then
It
you
will-
lose them.
Exactly,
right.
exactly. That's it. That's
There's another
that's the
expression.
thing.
You have to know when to hold them and know when to
Fold
fold
them.
them.
Oh, that's nice. I like it.
That's cards.
What does
It's
folding
playing
mean?
cards.
It's about cards.
That's about cards.
So what I want to discuss with you today, because this was last week.
Cards, but it's just
Are
know when to be
from our parents' years of counseling couples, the top 6 things that he's found are the root of problems inside of a relationship. Things that really cause problems that people are not always aware of. They don't always talk about them. Sometimes two people are arguing about something, they think that's their problem, but it's only a symptom of something else that they're not even aware of, or maybe they're aware of but they're embarrassed to tell they come to you to talk to you for advice, and they're afraid to tell you. They don't want to tell you what's really bothering them, how far back it goes. These are the top 6 things that have, it's not the only 6 things, but many of the 6 things that a person has to know when someone is having a problem in the relationship, where it might come from. The first one might be a little uncomfortable, but it's important. When I was a rabbi in another synagogue once upon a time, I was sitting in my office and a non-Jewish couple came to knock on my door. And I guess they saw an ad somewhere or whatever, a rabbi. They wanted to reach out for spiritual advice. Neither of them felt connected to the church that they had grown up in, and they wanted advice from a spiritual person who was not a Christian. So we sat down, we spoke, and they seemed to really like each other. They had a son together, and just something was missing. They were, it's almost like they didn't really care about each other. They really appreciate, as friends, they look like 2 good friends, but not actually 2 people who are married to each other. And immediately something clicks in my head, and this is the kind of thing that you normally don't expect a rabbi should ask, but when was the last time the 2 of you were intimate with each other? I had to start thinking.
When the baby born.
Thinking. The baby's 2, 9 months before that. Almost 3 years.
Wow.
I said, how can it be you're married to each other almost 3 years? We didn't have time, the baby, feeding, da-da. I found the root to your problem. What does the rabbi prescribe? You have to have a more intimate life with each other. And you know what? It worked. I followed up with this couple. And really what happened was they almost in a routine fell out of touch with each other on a physical level. Okay, let's write here. Yesh hamakor l'machloketu. Sometimes the origin of fighting inside of a relationship, she'enam mekayimim mitzvat ona k'halacha, that they are not following the Jewish approach to sexuality, to being together on an intimate level. In a Jewish relationship, there's an amount of times, at the very least, that a husband and wife not should be together, but must be together. That must be close to each other. But they hide it from the rabbi or from their therapist or from their friend for whatever reason. Mishum busha, because they're embarrassed. What am I going to tell them the last time I slept with them? To my rabbi, so they're going to say, are you crazy? You have to speak about it begalui, openly. No, don't beat around the bush. Let's talk honestly about this topic. והחכים להדריכם נכון לקיים את המצווה כהלכה ולהפרותם למומחה לדבר זה. Sometimes a person has to send them to someone who can actually help them. There are professionals who can help in such an area. But there are times where this is a problem, that if a couple is not together at an intimate level, how do you expect that they're going to be together in all kinds of other things? They're lacking a very basic human need, a desire that they're not having. And I'm embarrassed to share with you the following story, but I'll share with you anyways. When I was studying to be a rabbi, so most of what I learned, what you learn in yeshiva, you learn the laws of meat and milk, and what happens if a pig falls into a pot of kosher chicken soup, and how do you salt the cow when you cut its head off. Very practical rabbinical things, you know. The stuff that you actually need to learn, you can only learn when you're apprenticing by somebody, when you're walking around with somebody who they deal with these things. And I pushed on our parents a lot that I should be with him. I want to hear how he talks to people. One of the times we were speaking, there was a couple that came to our parents that they couldn't have children. 10 years they've been married, they wanted to have children. They wanted a blessing to have children. So our parents started asking questions. And at a certain point, he asked the husband to step out of the room. And he speaks to the wife, and he says, I don't understand what's going on. Something here in the story doesn't make 10 years you're trying. Did you ever go to any treatments? Did you ever go? So she told him the following. She says, my husband goes to the mikveh every morning before he prays. And he thinks that because he goes to the mikveh every morning, if I wasn't in the story, I would never tell you the story. He thinks because he goes to the mikveh every morning, he doesn't have to shower. And probably the last time my husband showered was before we got married. Every morning he goes to the ritual bath. He says, I love him very much, but I can't be anywhere near this man. He doesn't wear deodorant, he doesn't use soap, he doesn't wear shampoo. Our parents calls the man back in. He says, I'd like to tell you. He says, you're 35 years old. He said, you're clearly a very religious person. He said, the rabbi has to prescribe you some treatment. You must shower twice a day with shampoo and soap, and this is the brand of deodorant you should buy. And like this. And Baruch Hashem, a year later, we were invited to a brit. But sometimes you have to think, it's not normal, but sometimes there are not normal situations that come to you, and you have to be able to think differently. Sometimes the two people are not able to have children, not because they're not able to have children. They're just the circumstances don't allow them to ever be in a way that they can have children. And sometimes a person has to think this way. Intimacy is a very important thing in the Jewish world. I'm not in the place right now in this class to talk about all the details of this, but there have been a number of books put out recently by a few Orthodox rabbis. Something that has never been done before. To talk about sexuality in Judaism from a halachic perspective, on a hashkafic perspective, on a philosophical level. And the beauty of these books is they're talking about things that people pretend somehow in the last 2,000 years, because we spent time with Christians in Europe somewhere, we decided to become Christians. We're Catholic when it comes to the bedroom in the Jewish world. And it's become very dangerous. We've ended up, when I sit with couples, I'll never marry off a couple that I don't teach them the laws of relationships and family purity, because the nonsense that they hear everywhere else is very dangerous, very damaging. I had a couple come to me now in their 50s, and I sat with them. Everything that they were taught in their life was a lie. 30 years they're married, and whichever evil person taught them back in the day messed up their whole life. And I can't speak about this harsh enough, but it's not normal. It's not normal. This is what they were taught. But yeah, Kadosh Baruch Hu created two people who love each other, who want to be with each other, but they shouldn't be. This is how we started off our class back, remember, in the shul. We started off about the couple that they couldn't even say each other's name. The rabbi told them, you shouldn't call each other by your first name.
Yes,
it's not modest.
Yes,
are you? It's your wife. What do you mean? If you can't call her by her first name, who can call her by her first name? And if you can't give her a hug, then who can give her a hug? And this in the name of Hashem. This in the name of Judaism. All you have to do is open up the Tanakh and read how we have relationships with each other. Read about the relationship between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shir HaShirim is full of. We are commanded to be together in a union that is beautiful, that is full of love, that is full of harmony, that is just as physical as it is spiritual. There's a time for this and there's a time for that. And if we only tread this ascetic Catholic line, what do you think is going to happen to Am Yisrael? We had such a group of people in the Jewish world. You have Dead Sea Scrolls from the Qumran sect. What happened to them? Do you know what happened to them?
They're in Jerusalem in the museum.
Yeah, they're in the museum, but why are they not alive anymore? Do you know?
No.
What are you talking about?
The Dead Sea
The
Scrolls.
people in the
Who wrote
in the
them?
story,
Who wrote them? They
and
were
נכחדו, they were in the.
weren't they Saracens?
הרי יהודה.
Were they?
Yeah.
Saracens?
I don't know what a Saracen is, but
Oh.
you might probably do, so you can tell me.
הפרושים והצדוקים.
They were the
They were Plushim, they were Pharisees, they were
correct.
Sadducees.
Yes,
Yes, there were a number of breakaways in that
That's
generation.
that's correct. And
There
they
were
lived
breakaways
outside
that we
Jerusalem.
think these breakaways, they just didn't accept rabbinic law. That was
That's
their...
it.
Not accepting rabbinic law can be very dangerous. I'll tell you how. Forgive me. What I'm going to share now is not meant to offend any person's custom. It is just a thought that has to be formulated. There are Jews who don't eat rice and corn and beans on Pesach.
Correct.
I bring this opinion in my book, and I bring at the bottom that it's probably not accurate, but the Rambam's opinion, the understanding of Rabbi Yosef Kapach in Yemen, who was a student of a student of a student of the Rambam, is the reason why Ashkenazi Jews refrain from eating rice and corn and beans is not a Jewish custom. He holds it's not a custom that Ashkenazim are allowed to follow. The reason is it's a non-Jewish custom. Which non-Jews don't eat rice and corn and beans on Pesach? The Sadducees, the Tzedukim, later became the Karaites. They didn't have an oral law. When Hashem says you cannot have grains on Pesach, we know there are 5 grains you cannot have on Pesach. They said, we don't believe in the rabbis. We have all the grains we don't have on Pesach. And therefore they decided they don't have rice, they don't have corn, they don't have beans, they don't have all kinds of things. And this somehow eventually leaked into the Jewish community. And the students of the Rambam say, it's not that it's an Ashkenazi custom not to have rice and corn and beans. This is a non-Jewish custom that if you follow, you're violating a biblical commandment of not following non-Jewish practices. Because when you don't have a rabbinic tradition, how do you know that 5 grains are only 5 grains? Maybe there are 6 grains, maybe there are 8 grains, maybe there are 10 grains. In my research, there may have been some groups of Karaites that refrain from such things. It's not entirely accurate what Rav Yosef Kapach writes, but the idea is the same. We know family purity laws, they exist. There are a number of days you count, clean days, there are 7 days, or whatever days that we're counting. If a person doesn't follow Chazal, they don't follow our rabbis in the Talmud, in the Shulchan Aruch, they don't follow, then there are all kinds of times that a person will never be with their wife, that they think that you're not allowed to be together, and entire sects of Jews were wiped out on their own decisions of not being with their wives. They did not have children, they were unable to live together, they did not continue their generations. Eventually they just died out because of a rejection of rabbinic law. Now, this is something you should know, because you might hear this somewhere else and you should know that it's wrong. There's a custom. The custom is in the Shulchan Aruch denounced. So it's not a custom. Yeah, Jews follow it, but it's not a custom. There's a custom that after a baby is born, that for the first 40 days for a boy or 80 days for a girl, a woman doesn't go to the mikveh. 80 days. How long 80 days is?
Yes, it's nearly 3 months.
Nearly 3 months. And that's only if everything works out that it happens in the first 80 days. In that situation, there's a verse in the Torah that mentions something similar. The Emoriim, Amorites, remember those guys?
Yes, yes.
They had a custom to refrain from being together with their wives for 40 days or 80 days. This became somehow a Jewish custom. The Rambam says that anybody who dares follow this custom, you should take him out of the Jewish people.
I agree.
It's not a Jewish custom.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, so the Rambam brings down, but if it's your custom, what can you do? It's your custom. But so many times, the Chaye Adam, who's a great Ashkenazi rabbi, says it's a dangerous custom. It's not something we should perpetuate in the Jewish people. Sometimes things have to be stopped. And if we don't accept the authority of Chazal, our rabbis are the ones who made the Torah more normal. If it wasn't for our rabbis, we'd be poking each other's eyes out. An eye for an eye, an arm for an arm, a leg for a leg. Chazal came in and said, are you crazy? You think you're going to poke? We would look, if it wasn't for Chazal, if it wasn't Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, for Hillel, for Shammai, we would look like ISIS in the Middle East. We are proud followers of a rabbinic Torah. We must continue to follow rabbinic Torah. There's no reason for us to become now Karaites or Sadducees or Catholics or Protestants or whatever you want to become. We're Jews and we have a Jewish tradition that's very beautiful. And in the last number of years, we've been trying very hard, a number of Orthodox rabbis, to push out what is the Jewish take on these topics. And I hope, B'ezrat Hashem, that as those things come to
They
light...
spoke about it at the conference.
Oh, Baruch Hashem, I'm happy to hear.
Rabbi Schusterman, Rabbi Bell.
A lot of Chabad rabbis. Was it a JLI as a Chabad
No, but
organization?
there were lots of people who weren't Chabad. There were a lot of people there who
JLI
weren't
is
Chabad.
very mixed.
It's
Yeah?
very mixed, very
Yeah,
mixed.
okay.
And they have a great setup for young people.
Where was it you told me again?
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs.
Yeah,
Okay, very
they
nice.
did, it was, and that subject was very much spoken about. And the other subject that they spoke about was people who can't have children and what you can do and what you can't do, being religious. And everything's open. as far as they're
Very
concerned,
nice.
the world is yours. You can go to whoever you wish and do, just advise someone, and that's fine. It's perfect.
I was at a barber shop in Yerushalayim. There's a guy named Shimon who gave haircuts. So I used to get a haircut in the old city. And I was waiting in line. There was the guy who walks in. Oh, Mazal Tov, you got married, right? He says, don't wish me Mazal Tov. Just a week ago, he was there getting a haircut to get married. He said he got married to his wife, and the next morning she ran away from home.
What the fuck?
And it turns out that he wasn't told she had severe, severe mental issues that nobody bothered to tell him about. And she refused, once she moved out of bed, she refused to ever take her medication. She never wanted to be married in the first place. She ran away.
I'm scared.
And sometimes that's a very extreme situation. But sometimes a person finds himself in a situation where the things they think they're struggling with are very gentle, very minor issues that could be helped with the help of a therapist, help of a psychologist, with the help of a psychiatrist. There are some issues that exist that are normal issues that happen in a person's life that, Baruch Hashem, the stigmas that are around mental illness are far from being gone. But we've come a long way in a short amount of time to really address some of these issues. Sometimes there's some kind of mental issue on either side or both of their sides that can very easily be taken care of. Either it's something that can be taken care of by the rabbi, it might be something very simple, or something that needs a mumche, something that needs an expert. But the rabbi should always have a person they can send somebody to and say, this is the place where you can go get help. But included in the category of mental illnesses, yesh lekut v'choli hamidot. There are some people who have illnesses of character traits. Their midot are ill. Their good character traits are severely diseased. Kagon kas, there are people who they have anger management issues, serious anger management issues. Akshanut, there are people who are serial stubborn people. Everything in the world they're stubborn about.
Their personality disorders.
The hergelim ra'im, and they have all kinds of bad character traits. Sometimes people even have a whole worldview, a philosophy that is very, very twisted and very. Sometimes people also need help in those areas. A person who's an angry person, it's almost impossible to ever get along with such a person. An angry person is you never know what's going to happen for them. They can blow up, they can break things, they can hurt people. Sometimes you just don't. Akshanut, the person who's stubborn, what does it mean stubborn? They always have to have their way. There's one person in the relationship that's always making decisions, and the other one that's always saying yes. Sometimes it's the man, sometimes the woman. There's no rule that it's a man or a woman. This person has a problem. The problem is the whole world revolves around themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is an issue that has to be worked out. You cannot be in a healthy relationship if it's all about you. If you want to live all about you, so live alone. You can't live with somebody else. Also, it should all be about you. What about what she wants? What about what he wants? I was sitting at a wedding once, and there was a man who was not from an Orthodox background. Is there a tissue box somewhere I could ask for?
הנה יש פה.
הנה, מצאתי.
And he told me he loves coming to Orthodox weddings. The reason? It's the one time in his life he could eat whatever he wants. He said his wife micromanages everything he eats. He can't have this kind of food, he can't eat that, she doesn't like when She says now he sits on the other side of the mechitza, he's alone, his wife is over there for 4 hours, he's eating everything, all day he can eat whatever he wants. Now at first I thought it was funny, but he kept speaking like I realized he really has a problem. This man really lives in a world where he can't even eat what he wants to eat without getting permission for it.
That's horrible.
You're a little kid in kindergarten, or
Get
you're
out of
a
there,
married person?
my husband.
What?
Get out of there.
But sometimes this is a problem, and a person that is a character trait that must be taken care of. There are people who are control freaks, and part of that's not conducive to any kind of healthy relationship. Yesh matzav, there are situations. There's a lack of modesty in a couple, and this causes all kinds of issues. I'll explain what I mean by lack of modesty. We're not talking here about someone who doesn't cover their elbows with I'm talking here lack of modesty. The following. Once I was a rabbi in a synagogue, and kiddush is a problem of mingling. Man and woman, they're all married to somebody else, or they're eating chamin over there with somebody else's wife, they're drinking a Sprite over there with someone else's husband. And so sometimes in a place like California, nobody cares. There are times when there are couples who are quite particular about this. They struggle in their own relationship. They've been cheated on in the past. There are relationships that are on the rocks already. And then there's one lady that always goes to this lady's husband and says hello to him. And then she always gets him a plate of food. And then she always... Now this is a problem of tzniut on many levels. But in a relationship that's damaged, it's even worse. And all of a sudden, this couple's fighting again. They go back, oh, how come she was talking to you? How come she was... And this lady might not be crazy. They have a bad history together. They've had issues in the past. Sometimes, not knowing where to draw boundaries in our modesty can create all kinds of problems inside of a relationship. I'll tell you, I was a rabbi, I did a chuppah. And normally, since this wedding, it was the first wedding I ever did, but since that wedding, I don't have any demands from couples when I get married to them. When I do the wedding, should the wedding be kosher? Yes, I hope the wedding should be kosher. So far, every wedding I've done has been kosher. Even the one wedding that wasn't supposed to be kosher, a week before the wedding, they changed the whole menu to be kosher. Not with any pressure from my end. I guess they felt that it didn't make sense for them to have a Jewish wedding and not to have it to be kosher. Dancing, I am not under any illusion that I can always separate people from dancing. But what I ask for is the first dance should be Jewish music, a little bit of hora, a little bit of something. I'll do Birkat Hamazon with them. We can do Shever Brachot. I'll leave. They can have the whole night to themselves. They can party however they want. Just let me go whenever I need to go. And most couples have been very receptive to that. Except for the first wedding that I did. I was unexperienced. I come to the wedding and I couldn't believe 20 minutes ago she's standing under the chuppah with a man. And 20 minutes later she's dancing with somebody else. And you want to tell me, forget a religious level. I'm not here coming as a rabbi, as a human being. How did you just marry your wife and now you're dancing with somebody else? You're dancing with, you're holding her, you're twisting her. You're married to somebody or you're not married to somebody. If you're married to somebody, why are you dancing with somebody else? Your wife's not a good dance partner, so don't dance. Stop dancing. Figure out what she's good at. She's good at walking on the beach, walk with her on the beach. Not everyone has to be a dancer. But how could you just get married to somebody, 20 minutes later you're dancing with somebody else? A person who has a sechel, has a straight mind, will see that there's a problem. It's a problem. And sometimes it causes much greater problems. Sometimes it's a lack of tzniut. Family members. There are family members that are problematic people. They also have problems with tzniut. They don't know boundaries. They don't know how to stay too close. They don't know how to stay too far. We're taught, you could be, even in the religious world, the genders are pretty much separated. But family members, they could hang out with each other. They could talk with each other. When I was with our parents studying to be a rabbi, there was a girl who came to his office. She was 17 years old. I don't want to name the name of her school, but the neighborhood her school was in was called Shaar. It's quite religious in that neighborhood. 17-year-old girl came to his office crying her eyes out. What happened? She's 17 years old and she's pregnant. Okay, this happens in the world. From Shaar.
Mm-hmm.
Whose baby are you pregnant with? Let's tell you a story. This girl has a sister who's married to a young man who's studying in yeshiva. And he goes to yeshiva every day from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m., whatever it is. His wife, meaning her sister, she supports the family by working. She works as a secretary in some office somewhere in Jerusalem. She goes to work from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. Yeah. The kids, though, come home from school at 1. And so between 1 till 3, they need somebody at home to take care of the kids. They can't afford a babysitter. So the sister, she gets out of her own school. She comes to the house. She takes care of the kids for 2 hours until her sister comes home. Fine. Yeshivas have a lunch break from normally 12 till 3. That's the 11 till 1, depending on the yeshivot you're in. Okay, it's her brother-in-law. He used to come home. He used to go, let's come home. He used to go, and they would see each other. They would see with the kids. They'd pick up the kids together. Whatever had happened, as time went on, they ended up developing some kind of unhealthy relationship with each other, and she was pregnant with her brother-in-law's child.
That's a bruch.
Now, the end of the story is not relevant. What happens, what did happen, what didn't happen. But it's a very real situation in a very religious community where genders know to stay away from each other. But a brother-in-law is just like any other man. He's married to the family, so that means yes, we invite him for dinner, he comes to us for Shabbat, but we have to be just as careful around the brother-in-law as you are around another man from the street. And sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes because we're so close, the normal boundaries that we put up for ourselves around other people don't exist in such a situation. And a person has to use their seichel. Sometimes modesty can cause all kinds of issues or lack thereof. When I say modesty, please don't put in your head some kind of Mormon modesty. I'm talking here about modesty, meaning boundaries that relate to sexuality, that relate to relationships. These are very important things to have in any healthy relationship. יש מצב שהבטלה היא גורמת למחלוקתם, ובמיוחד שהבעל בטל. Sometimes being unemployed is a big problem. Most of the time, in many relationships, it seems to be that it's okay for a woman not to have a job. But if a man doesn't have a job, it can cause World War III to happen in the house. Why it works that way? Kind of all kinds of theories, social norms, whatever it would be that's in the world. Like we mentioned about the guy who lost his job before. But there's a lady, she's a talented lady, she was in college, now she has a family, now she has kids. She doesn't want to be at home all day long. She is not cut out for sitting in the house from the morning till the nighttime, taking care of kids and changing diapers and cleaning the kitchen. It's not what she wants to do with her life. In that kind of situation, she may become very resentful of her relationship, very resentful of her children, very resentful of, she had a great life until she got married and all of a sudden her life was thrown to the side. And it's not a bad person. She's telling you she wants to do other things, but she doesn't even know. She thinks that if she would leave the house and hire a babysitter, she's a bad mother. But instead, what's happening is she's so resentful. She hates her husband. She hates her, and it's not her fault. She's in a situation where resentment is what happens. A husband can be the same way. Sometimes it's very difficult for a husband. See, I live off my wife's salary, so I don't know what this works in other relationships. Sometimes I've been told there are men who have a very hard time with the fact that their wife makes more money than them. I don't know why you care. If you're both married to each other, so she makes more money than you, then it just means that you also made more money. The problem seems to be an ego problem, not so much a logical, normal problem. Like, who cares who brings in more money than the other one? But sometimes this is a problem. Sometimes it causes him to feel negatively about her job, and if he doesn't like about her job,
I think society set that up.
Yes.
There could be that society set that up,
Very much.
and regardless of where it comes from, it can create for a very unhealthy environment at home.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a person has to either be spoken to tell them what you're worried about, what bothers you. It's not normal. Does she ever look? She doesn't look down at you. She doesn't treat you any different. Why would you feel so bothered about it? Society. Sometimes it's your friends. Your friends say, "Oh, how come your wife is a CEO and you're still a janitor in someone's building?"
Right.
Okay, so
But
you have
that's
bad friends.
That's changing a lot. I know lots of Mr. Moms. I know a lot of Mr. Moms.
I said, but why should we call them Mr. Mom? She's just being a good mom. See, where I come from, I don't
Mr.
understand
Dad.
why it's such a big deal. Because I don't really understand this. I just
Society
know
called
from my
Mr.
experience
Mom.
that this is an issue. But sometimes there are people who their lack of being busy can also be a problem for them. There are men that come home from work and they I once went to visit my friend for a weekend, and his dad might be a nice guy. He had a nice job. He would come home at 5 or 6, and whenever he finished, he would come home, walk over to the refrigerator, take a beer out of the refrigerator, sit down on the couch, unbutton his shirt, put his feet up, and until he fell asleep on the couch that night, he was watching TV. Dinner, kids, family, phone calls, bills, didn't do any of it. This kind of person has a problem. This problem is he's good for nothing. He's not involved in anything. But that could lead to all kinds of other problems. Sometimes when the couples come to talk to you and they're using all kinds of hints, she makes me work too hard. Maybe she's not making you work too hard. Maybe the husband has a problem that he doesn't ever want to do anything. In that situation, it's your job to dig a little bit deeper and to figure out what could really be the problem. There are times when a person doesn't appreciate the other one's career. Why this happens, people get married, they know what the other one's going to work in. So I don't know why this happens, but imagine I mentioned to you a story last week about somebody who was a bus driver. And their
Sometimes
wife,
you don't know it when you get married. Sometimes
okay,
it happens.
sure, that's true. This is true. Sometimes you just get a job somewhere in life. This is what lands you. There's never, my opinion, you don't have to agree with me. There's no such thing as a parnasa, as a livelihood that is embarrassing. No matter what it is that a person does, parnasa mechabedet baleha.
As long as it's honest work.
Okay, very good. So if you're a cheat, you're a swindler, you're right. I'm not talking about this. But if a person has to bring money home and they decide the best way that I can do it is by sweeping the streets somewhere. So that's a job. They're doing what they. That's what their Kadosh Baruch Hu gave them this ability. Why does it have to be such a big deal? So your husband has a job, but he can't afford to buy a vacation home by the beach where all your friends go for the summer. The problem is not in him and his job. The problem is with you and your expectations. And I'm only bringing this up because last week I told you the story about the guy who couldn't afford the vacation home, so he now lives in his office because his wife doesn't want him home. These are extreme examples, but there are minor. So these have symptoms in other ways. If I don't appreciate what my wife does, then I'll never appreciate why she works so hard at it. I had a person once, his wife was a teacher. Not just a teacher, but she was a kindergarten teacher. There's a difference. A high school teacher, they show up at work, they leave work, they grade papers, that's the extent of their work outside of the classroom. A kindergarten teacher should be paid a lot more money than other teachers are. They work before class, they cut out all kinds of nice papers and they make signs and they work creative projects because they're not kids that are sitting in 45-minute periods. They need a new you can't make them paint the same thing every day. Every day there has to be something new and exciting. And there's a husband, I don't understand, my wife doesn't even make enough money as a teacher and she's working outside of the classroom and I have to go shopping and I don't know, what's this, Michael's, I have to go buy her supplies. And what is this? This is crazy. If you don't appreciate your wife's profession, then I don't expect you to understand all that goes into it. But that's something that the rabbi or the counselor, whoever they're coming to, has to help both sides appreciate. This is a problem. Not appreciating what the other person does. I have two good friends. Good friends. When I mean good friends, when I needed to get an apartment in the old city. So I made enough money to pay the rent of my apartment. But in Israel, they have sometimes the large down payments that you have to put on it. It's a strange thing. So for an apartment that I was paying 5,000 shekels a month for, that was 5,000 shekels. Kehillat city, $1,200, $1,200, something like that.
Yeah.
They wanted a 50,000 shekel down payment, like a deposit. Now, who has 50,000? I don't have 50,000. I still don't have 50,000 shekels floating around somewhere. And so I can afford the rent, I can afford the bills, I have good credit, I don't have the money that it goes. So I came to yeshiva. My friend said, "Oh, did he close on the apartment?" No, I didn't close on the apartment. So I'll put the down payment for you. I didn't end up going through because I have a rule that I don't like to owe anybody money. I'd rather live in a cardboard box in the street than someone else should put a down payment on my house for me. But that's the kind of friend, a good friend, somebody who really, really cared and trusted enough. So I spoke to today. I spoke to him yesterday. I spoke to him 3 days ago. This person was a tremendous up and coming rabbi, older than me, very successful as a rabbi. Traveling through Europe, was on the European Board of Rabbis, all kinds of, a very special person. He got married to a lady who didn't want him to be a rabbi. Now, he should have known that when he got into the relationship, right? Yeah. But she thought, okay, what's the big deal? What does it take to be a rabbi's wife? They just have to show up to shul, right? That's all. Make cookies sometimes on Shabbat. She got married to him, and it's been, 7 years later. He quit his job as a rabbi. He doesn't work anymore as a rabbi. He moved back to live next to her parents, so he's not anywhere in a place where it's even conducive to have a job as a rabbi. He works in some menial position, all because, and I understand her. Do you know what it means to be a rabbi's wife? It means you will never pay your bills on time. It means you'll never have enough, financially, it's a disaster. But not just that, your house becomes public domain. People are coming in and out of your house all the time. If you like it, you want to rest, you're never going to go on vacation because the time where everyone else goes on vacation, that's when you work the most. So if you're off for the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, that's all the times my wife has vacation. Those are the only times I can't go anywhere. If my wife wants to take a vacation with me from now until Yom Kippur, I can go with her wherever she wants. But she works. But the moment that she gets off from school, winter break, that's my high season. That's already Chanukah. It's a very difficult thing. You have to always listen to everybody's problems in the whole world. When you come to shul, you have to compliment everybody on what they wear. And if you don't compliment the right person on the right thing, but you know how much my wife gets paid for being a rabbanit?
Zero.
A rabbanit is not a job that gets paid.
Zero.
Something for a community to think about. I know one synagogue in the world where the rabbanit is on the salary because she does so much work. Why shouldn't she be? But if a person doesn't appreciate her husband's profession and he needs all that extra energy and effort to have that profession, so clearly there's a problem in that relationship. But the problem that, and I respect him on a certain level. I'm sad for him that he's in such a relationship. I respect him that he did whatever it took to hold on to his family more than hold on to his career. Other people would choose their career over a family. And I think it's kind of a bittersweet ending to a very beautiful career, but he's not my only friend like that. We had another friend who I was convinced would one day come here to San Diego and help us out.
They didn't realize this.
But very good. It's a pity they didn't realize this. Do you remember when we studied about female rabbis? Can we have female rabbis?
Yes.
And I mentioned there's no such thing as like a rabbanit school.
Yes.
The danger in that is that when rabbis are dating, and I speak for experience, there's no way to find a person who wants to live the lifestyle that you would like to be cut out for. I mentioned Chabad as an exception to this rule because in Chabad there's this mentality of going out to do shlichut, and that people who want to do such things will eventually marry somebody who wants to do such a thing, but they're very unique in that way. I mean, I don't know any other group that has such a system put together. And it's very difficult. It's almost a hit or miss. You can look at potential, but potential doesn't always translate into reality later on down the road.
I remember when you were dating Devorah and we asked about her and your mother said, I was told she's born a Rabbanit. And I'm sure she was.
And she was.
And
She
she
was.
is. And she is.
Right.
The other problem is she thinks she was born a rabbi. That's the difference.
And she is.
And she is. Thank God. And you should know, for me, that was a very... I shared this story with my wife. I can share it with you again now. I went on a date before I met Devorah. Actually, the last girl I went on a date with before I met Devorah. They set me up. This one, she's a Rebbitzin. You don't know. You never met a Rebbitzin in your life. That she's a teacher. She's, you know... When you hear too many good things about a person, it's normally because you're going to meet them and there's nothing good about them. Right? So, I sat with this girl talking. I just mentioned a book that I was teaching, written by the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria. And she said, who?
Uh-oh.
This is a girl who grew up in a religious home, who's a teacher. She's a teacher of Jewish studies. So, and she doesn't know one of the foremost Jewish rabbis last year, and I realized that she really doesn't know anything. It's a very sad thing. She really doesn't know anything. When I met Devorah on our first date, I just mentioned a story about a man named the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe, Menachem Adolf Kotzker. I love the Kotzker Rebbe. He's one of my favorite personalities ever to live. I mentioned him, and the next 3 hours, Devorah gave me a lecture on Kotzk. On the Chassidut, on the books Kotzker Rebbe wrote, on stories about Kotzk, on Kotzker Rebbe this. I today know more about the Kotzker Rebbe than I ever did. But when that happened, I understood, this is a person who, when people call me up and I say, you know what, my wife would be better off answering this question. And you'll see my wife, she'll come to the library, she'll pull out a Shulchan Aruch, she'll open a Shulchan Aruch, she'll look up a question. I don't know many Rebbitzins that are able to do such a thing.
No,
And
she's
I'm
unusual.
I'm allowed to sing the praises of my
You
wife.
married
But
somebody
Baruch
that
Hashem,
was-
I'm allowed
yeah.
to do such a thing. And as
She's
a community,
amazing.
I know that my community also appreciates that my wife is good for more than baking kugel for the shul kiddush, you know?
She's
This is
more
very
than
special.
phenomenal. She
Baruch
is
Hashem.
really
Absolutely.
unbelievable.
I hope she can hear us to the wall. You know?
She's amazing.
Sometimes, in a relationship, the problem is שהגורם למחלוקתם וסכסוכם הוא מסיתים ומדיחים. They have people in their relationships who, I don't know a good word for this. להסית או להדיח. They're negative people in their relationship.
They're verbissen.
What is that?
They're verbissen. It's
That's
a
a Yiddish
a Yiddish word.
They're bitter. They're bitter.
Oh, okay.
Bitter.
A
They're very
verbissen person is.
I'll read the rest of the sentence and you'll help me come up with a good word.
Okay.
הן מצד קרובי המשפחה. Sometimes there are relatives that have a negative influence. הורים, the parents or the in-laws. אחים, גיסים, brothers-in-law. הן מצד זרים. Sometimes there are strangers, like friends or people at work or whoever it would be. וישכיל הרב להפסיק כל התערבות בענייני האיש ואשתו. Then it's the rabbi's job at that point to make sure that you cut off connections with the people who are causing unhealthy things in your life. Let's explain. I think in-laws is a very easy place to start. There are sometimes in-laws who are not aware of the fact that their child is now married. The Torah says that a person will marry their spouse and leave their parents.
Yes.
What does it mean leave their parents? In a healthy relationship, it means you don't kick your parents to the curb and never talk to them again, but you've raised me like that. You've raised me till now. You've allowed me to spread my wings. Now I'm going to build my own home, my own children, my own world. And some of the things I do you might like, some of the things I do you might not like. But as a parent, micromanaging my new household is not going to end well for anybody. Nobody's going to be happy with this.
No.
Your son-in-law is not your son. And that's okay. You can love him like I always hear. I love him like my son. Yes, but they're still not your son. The reason a child puts up with their parents, even when they do strange things, is because the child has 25, 30, 40, 50 years of a history of love with his parent, and says, okay, so the one time they got mad at me, or the time that they said something that wasn't nice to me, in proportion to our whole relationship, okay, it works out. But when the mother-in-law says something, I don't know you from a fly in the wall. I know your son. I married your son. I've known you for 6 months, and now you're going to tell me you don't like the way I dress? I don't love you enough to accept the things that you're going to do that are not good. And it takes a person to know, it takes healthy in-laws to know that they have to back away at a certain point. But also children need to know there are people who will meddle into your affairs. They'll meddle into your life. That it's not okay. When I got married, one of my biggest concerns, not so much, thank God my in-laws, I get along with them, but about the fact that certain Jewish practices in my home are very, very, very different. Fair to say? Very different than the way my in-laws do them. And my in-laws are not people who religion is like a secondary thing to them. Like religion is their primal cause. And therefore, these are things that might be points of contention. So it came time, it was Pesach, we were cooking here, and my mother-in-law's rule always is, whatever your husband does, that's what you do in your house. Always, always. And she's been very good about it. That's very special, because it's not a given. Yeah, she did mention to my wife, so you'll make rice on Pesach, why do you have to eat it? You can just let your husband eat it. Okay, fine, so that we hear. But never, ever, ever do they meddle into the things that we do or the way that we do them, even if I know that it bothers them. There are things that we do that are very different than they would do. But Baruch Hashem, that's a very good way to be in a relationship. Sometimes it's siblings. There are siblings that were best friends with your wife or best friends with their husband before they got married. And then they get married, and it's almost like you lost your sibling because now they have a new best friend. A normal sibling says, thank God, I couldn't be married to my sister. I couldn't be married to my brother. Good for them that they're married. I understand. It don't mean that I'll talk to them less. I'll probably see them a little less. It doesn't mean the end to a relationship. It just means the beginning of a new kind of relationship. You have to adjust the dynamics a little bit.
Not everybody can do that.
Right. And sometimes...
And that causes big contentions.
And what's the word they used?
Contention.
No, there was a word used before for me in Yiddish.
Verbissen.
That one.
No,
The
not
better.
Verbissen.
Verbissen, yes.
Verbissen.
Don't worry, I don't know either way which one it was.
Verbissen, it's with an S.
A person becomes very bitter
I
now.
would have done a V.
No, Verbissen.
My wife had a very good friend, she should live and be well, who when I got married, but when she moved to Israel, you moved to a new country, you're going to make new friends, you're going to talk less to your friends you left behind in New York, whatever. This girl got very upset, very hurt, how could you move on, how could you get new friends, how could you? What it ends up doing is it kills your relationship. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with a person who hates them so much. And I almost feel bad for the person that used to be the friend. They didn't know how to adjust, how to tweak the relationship into a way. My best friend, I haven't spoken to him since I was in Israel in May, and before that, I didn't speak to him for maybe 10 months. And my best friend. When I came to Israel, he was there to pick me up at the airport. He was a really good friend. Sometimes we know, he's in the army, he's a rabbi in the army. I mean, we don't always have time to talk on the phone, but that doesn't make a relationship. And you have to know how to tweak your world a little bit to... When this friend got married, he was the first of our class to get married, and he also lives in Israel. And we were all single, we were living in Yerushalayim at the time. You always go to your married friend's house for Shabbat meal. So all of a sudden, this poor guy just got married, and he's hosting like 12 bachelors in Shabbat meal. His poor wife, actually. Yeah, his poor wife. And it was my job when the guys would come over, so you finish your meal, you finish the dessert, there's like 20-minute leeway of saying goodbye. You cannot crash on his couch the whole Shabbat afternoon. He has a life, he has a wife, It was my job to pick these guys up by the ears and drag them out of the door, but they didn't understand. What do you mean? These are buddies. Last year, he was single. His couch was in a dorm room. You could sleep there all you want. Now he has a wife. Get out of her house. Sometimes people don't know how to adjust.
It's called
these
common sense.
Common sense is not so common. The name is very misleading.
I agree.
Common sense is, if it was so
very
common,
lacking.
then the world would be in a very different place.
You're right.
There are some people in your life that are so unhealthy, you just have to stay away from them. And here it's not necessarily family members. There are times where...
It can be also...
It could also be
family
family members, yes, but it's not only family members.
Of course. That's easier if it's not family
Yes,
members.
yes. And
Yes,
family members
absolutely.
you just have to
Very
sometimes
hard.
be together. Even.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. You don't have to. That's a choice.
Well, there are occasions when you can't help it.
Okay? But we all have choices in life to make.
You can
It
choose
is,
your
it is.
friend, but you can't choose your family.
That's true.
But you can
So
choose how much you'll put up with
Absolutely,
it.
but that's what I'm
you're
saying. To
That's
understand
exactly
her.
right.
At some place, there are family members that are more conducive to being in a good relationship with them, and some that are not. And
Okay.
I think it's harder, especially in the Jewish world, where we're very tight knit when it comes to family. We have a harder time in that regard of separating them with friends. Like some people are, I only see my family anyways on Thanksgiving, so it's not like they're a big part of my life. But us, if we only saw them on
have
Thanksgiving,
Shabbat,
we
every
would
Shabbat.
celebrate Thanksgiving. You know, Hodul Hashem Kitov, we only see it once a year, but and we have a different way of the world. There are people, there are friends that are bad friends, there are co-workers that are very negative influences on our life.
And they're toxic people.
Very toxic. And there are times you just have to know, I have to stay away from you. I'm sorry, you're not good for me, you're not good for my relationship, I have to stay away. But last but not least, and I think this is important, because everything we've mentioned today are normal issues that happen in any normal relationship. These are not bad people. Not every person who's fighting with their spouse needs to get divorced right away. Sometimes they're just issues that can be worked out. This last one is a test that nobody should ever be put up with. Nobody should ever have to deal with. But I don't have a cure for it. I think this is one of the most real issues that sometimes the third party can't help with. And that is, יש שגורם לסכסוכם הוא העוני המחסור. There are some people where their financial shortcomings causes all kinds of fighting in the home. When people are always under pressure, they don't know where they're going to pay their water bill from. They don't know, every month they're getting an eviction notice on their house. That it causes for constant, not 9 to 5, constant stress, constant turmoil, constant anguish, constant unsettlement. It's very hard for a person who's in that kind of situation to ever be able to just calm down enough to connect on a relationship. You'll find two spouses that are good people otherwise, but now they're always blaming all the problems on the other one. They're fighting because the home is just in such a stressful place. The kids are all worried and upset. The parents are fighting. The light, electricity went out for a day. There are situations, Hashem should say, that you never have to be in. I am praying that nobody should ever be in. But financial worries, and it doesn't have to be that extreme. Sometimes it's a family that's used to living a very lavish lifestyle. The husband loses his job. And then 6 months go by, and those are 6 months of we have to live off of our savings, and I don't know when I'm going to get a job again. I'll rephrase. I've noticed that people who have jobs often find jobs again. It's the people who work for themselves in all kinds of risky... There are years where they'll make millions of dollars, and there are years where they're an investor. They're a commercial contractor. Sometimes they'll make 10 years. They'll live off of their last project, but those next 10 years, especially the last 2 of them, can get very difficult. And until they get that next... And there are homes where it's not that there's no food in the refrigerator, but it's the fact that they know that there is nothing coming in, but a lot of things going out. In such a relationship, there's a lot of stress. And this stress, sometimes you can't help a person with the stress. The best you can do is try to calm them down enough to reconnect on this. You two are partners in this. You're both in this together. There's no reason for this to come in between you. But finances are probably the number one cause of Shalom Bayit issues. If I have to know Shalom Bayit, most of the problems happen around money. And it's not something that I have to date found a cure for. But what you can do. It's important to know, and as friends, it's important to know there are all kinds of government programs you can help a person sign up for. Baruch Hashem, we live in a country where it may not be perfect, it's not a perfect system. I don't care at this moment in time if you are a Democrat or you're a Republican or whatever you feel. But you live in a world where you don't die in the street. You're not supposed to, at least. There are places you can go, there are places that person can get help. Respect, and these things have become much more... Today there are people who have food stamps and it looks like a credit card and they're not embarrassed anymore when they go to the grocery store. And there's a reason why if a person works and they're paying taxes and they've hit a hard time in their life, it's in this country's belief system that until they get back on their feet again, they're allowed to resort to a government program. It's considered decent and fair. I'm not talking about people who are abusing such programs. But these are things that exist. You live in a country where there are good things. There are private organizations. If we're Jewish, it's even better for us. There are a lot of Jewish organizations that help, that are there, that can take care of things that, I was once visiting someone in the hospital in Yerushalayim, and I have a mouthful to say about Satmar Hasidim. But the Satmar Hasidim have a whole enclave right outside of the hospital in Yerushalayim where they bring food to people and they put up lodging for people and they take care of people and you have to give credit where credit is due. The person that's at the hospital that doesn't have a visitor, that doesn't have a meal, that doesn't have a place to go afterwards, they will take care of it entirely. And you have to know, you have to be able to be resourceful and to help people in those situations, at the very least make the connection to where they need to go. On a personal level, when I got married, my wife had a job in New York, she got a job in San Diego. We thought that her insurance had transferred with her to San Diego. It turns out it didn't. In the 2 months, 3 months we got married, we were busy with finding a house and furniture and planning a wedding, whatever it was. Nobody took care of making sure that insurance actually ended up being transferred. And around Sukkot time, we found out my wife was pregnant, and we didn't have any insurance. And in 2013, to get insurance for someone who's pregnant was impossible because it's called a pre-existing condition, and nobody will sell you insurance once a person has a pre-existing condition. And so we had to start making. It was very strange. We were both people who our whole life had medical insurance. All of a sudden, with a lapse of a month, it wasn't even a real amount of time, we weren't able to get insurance. So we had to call hospitals, and they have all kinds of plans they'll put you on. If you put out $15,000, then maybe every shot is going to cost, this is going to cost, every hour you spend in the delivery room might cost. This is not, God forbid, about any other illness, just about a pregnancy. And it was a very tough situation, because who knows what's going to happen, who knows what it's going to be. And then President Obama passed a law that allowed for people with pre-existing conditions to get medical insurance. And I have to say, you don't say whatever you want about President Obama. Again, like I told you, I don't really care. But at that moment in time, I felt what it's like when you have a government that cares about citizens. There was a time where we would not have gotten medical insurance, and Baruch Hashem, like a whole world was opened up to us. We were able to get on a medical insurance, we were able to pay our medical insurance. Meaning, even if you wanted to pay for insurance, you couldn't find someone who would let you pay for the insurance. And now we were able to do it. We were able to pay, we got into a plan, Baruch Hashem, and everything else worked out. Since then, there's never been such issues. But you live in a world where you're not living in a third world country here where people are dropping dead in a village on the earth. Here, Baruch Hashem, there's a world, there's a system, and there are people who are in financial stress, they're in financial burden, and as a community, it's our job to take care of them. But even if the taking care of them just means to help them connect with someone who can help them, it's very important. It's very important. And Baruch Hashem, these 6 causes, I'll summarize them. Sometimes it's a lack of intimacy. Sometimes it's a mental condition or a personal character flaw on one of their sides. Sometimes it's a lack of boundaries, tzniut, modesty inside a relationship. Sometimes it's unemployment or the resentment of not doing anything with one's life can cause someone to become very negative. Sometimes it's people who are getting involved in your relationship that do not belong inside of your relationship. This is very important. This one I cannot stress enough. Nobody belongs in between a husband and a wife. Nobody. There's not anybody that should be in there, that should be deciding things for there. And if there is such a place, it's a very unhealthy world. People should know that once you close the door to your house, they belong on the other side of that door, not on this side of the door. And last but not least, financially. Financial issues cause all kinds of stress. That stress can lead to all kinds of things inside of a relationship. And that means that we've now ended our introduction. And next week we're actually going to talk about relationships. But like I told you 6 weeks ago, if we don't know what could go wrong in a relationship, we'll never know how to do it right. And these things that could go wrong are very important to know. That sometimes there are things that can be helped, that can be fixed. And we're so focused on the small problem here that we're not looking at something else. I had a husband that came in and told me he couldn't understand. He took his wife to the grocery store and she bought the more expensive noodles, not the cheaper noodles. That's why you came to me. That's why I had to have a meeting with you. But then I spoke with him a little more and I realized it wasn't the pasta. They're not fighting over pasta. He has a problem that she thinks that she's always spending his money, and she feels that he's always being too stingy with her. So she's always trying to flex her muscles and show that she can buy the $2.99 pasta instead of the $1.99 pasta. But neither of them knew that was what they were struggling with, and it was my job to be able to stick my head in there and figure out that issue. But that's something that's a normal thing that happens all the time. I mentioned last night to my niece, we were talking with Devar. I have a friend who he took me out to lunch in New York. He was a great guy. And, at the end it's always awkward, like, who pays for the lunch? Mm-hmm. So I always try to just pay because I don't have the patience. I don't want someone else's favorite. So he spent the whole meal, though, telling me how poor he is, that he's not able to make ends meet. Of course I'm going to pay for his lunch. That's not a question. It's not a rabbi, but clearly rabbis are doing worse than this guy who's in the medical field. And at the end of lunch, we were driving home. So we're close friends. So he wanted to know how much money we make out of San Diego and how much money you make in New York. After taxes, he makes a month $12,900 a month.
Shem, and you had to pay.
I paid his lunch. And now I'm like, I know who to add to my donor list. Yes, but listen to what he told me. His wife, Hashem should bless her, comes from a very, very wealthy home, and she spends a month on shopping and going out with her friends. Over $7,000 a month.
Next time, don't pay for his lunch.
Next time, moral of the story, I don't pay for his lunch. But what I did see from here, maybe he actually is poor. Maybe he's in a dynamic where his wife really depletes his bank account, and he's always, and so for him, he feels sure he makes a lot of money, but he doesn't really feel that he has enough to do whatever it is. Sometimes it's in the head, a financial worry, but a person has to know to take everything into consideration. Don't be so quick to judge other people and their problems. B'ezrat Hashem, everything should be good. We should all have happy, healthy relationships, and HaKadosh should bless us with a lot of clarity, a lot of guidance, and I look forward to learning with you next week also. B'ezrat Hashem.
You say that America, and it's
sorry.
true, America has this safety net, which is really great. I mean, I think that's the best thing about America is that, but most other countries don't.
Don't. That's true. That's true.
And so, I mean, this doesn't only apply to America.
To America, you're right. There are places where this is not the reality. This is not the case.
Yeah, but
And
the
poverty
abuse
can be
that,
a huge stress.
but the abuse that this system takes is absolutely awful.
Just because a system is abused doesn't mean you get rid of it. It means you have to find a way to get rid of the people abusing it.
That's exactly right.
And you should know that I used to have different opinions about this until I myself was in such a situation, and I'm being honest about it. I had a different opinion about this until I was in that situation, and then I said, you know what? I have to be honest. I have to be fair. That I would have been stuck had it not been for. And I'm grateful to live in a place where that is important. That is an agenda. When a politician is running, there are places in the world where politicians, and here, by the way, don't worry, politicians also care about their pockets. But when part of their platform, the people demand from them, you also must care about us. And the country delivers. Just think about it. I was at the park with my son. Why is it in the world that City of San Diego puts up parks? It's a special thing that they decided that there's a place, and I know it's a very simple, we take it for granted. There's a place where kids can come play, and there's grass that is watered, and jungle gyms that are taken care of, and sand that is replaced every few months so there's no bugs inside of it, or whatever else that happens. That is a chesed, that is a kindness. Sure, you pay taxes, we all do, and that's part of what funds these things. But we live in a society that cares enough about the people. There are people in the world that they pay taxes and their government takes half their money, and if they're not being murdered in the streets, they're very lucky, and nobody builds parks for them, there's no hospitals for them. We're very grateful to be in such a place. And we have to give thanks. Thanks to Hashem for influencing the people's hearts of this country to care, to do such things. Don't take things for granted. Now, sometimes we are so quick to judge and to be angry, but we're light years ahead of some other places in the world, and we're very lucky. All right. You want to ask something?
If you could say, can I borrow the order of the 6?
Yes, of course.
Thank
Let
you
me
so
just
much.
look at my notes.
Okay.
The order. The first one is problems in the intimate relationship. The second, mental illnesses or personal character flaws. The third one, lack of modesty, boundaries with other people. The fourth, but it would be either unemployment or person not having what to do with their time that leads to all kind of resentment about themselves. People, the fifth one are people who get involved in a relationship negatively. Negative people in the relationship, either family members or strangers. And the sixth is our financial risk, the stress that comes from lack of finances or financial burdens that they take care of.
After hearing
Thank
David
you.
Aarons, I can hear